15 minutes of truth. Let's get into the mix. Welcome back, y'all, to the Daily Mix. I'm your host, Omari Jahi. We've all been there. You make a mistake, you hurt someone you care about, or you step out of line with your own principles. Usually, the first thing we do is throw out this quick, I'm sorry, my bad, and hope everyone just moves on, right? We want to sweep it under the rug and get back to normal. But an apology is just words, y'all. It's just words. It doesn't fix the damage that was done. It doesn't rebuild the trust. And it doesn't clear away the heavy weight of guilt that you feel heavily burdening on your shoulders. Hopefully you feel guilty. Because if you don't feel guilty, now that's saying something else about you. But today, we're talking about a concept that goes far beyond an analogy. We are talking about atonement. What is it really? And why is it necessary if you want to experience true personal transformation and lasting peace in your relationships? We're jumping into the deep end today, guys. This is kind of a part 2 of what we were talking about yesterday in yesterday's mix. So let's jump into the mix, y'all. Well, first of all, what is this thing called atonement? What's the difference between an analogy and atonement? Well, analogy says, I acknowledge I did something wrong. Atonement says, I am going to do the work to make it right. It's the difference between words and actions. At-one-ment, atonement. If you break the word down, its roots. Atonement, at-one-ment, literally means at-one-ment. It is the purpose of bringing things back into harmony. When you wrong somebody, a gap is created. Atonement is kind of like the bridge that brings, it kind of brings back that being of at-one-ment with your partner, your community, or with God, your creator. Think of a band. If the bass player is out of tune or out of key and it's throwing off the entire groove, right? The bass player can't just look at the band and say, oh, my bad, and keep playing out of tune. He has to what? He has to stop, tune up his instrument, adjust his pitches to where they're in tune, and then he now can play in tune and in harmony with the band, right? Atonement is the act of tuning yourself back up so that you can play in harmony with others. Now, I'm going to give you an example. Just imagine this. A couple who have been married for over a decade. Let's call the wife Cheryl and let's call the husband Marcus, right? And Marcus has always been the steady anchor, but recently he took a risk and started a new business venture, a startup. Behind closed doors, in a rare moment of vulnerability, he confesses to Cheryl that, he's terrified of failing and feels overwhelmed by the pressure to provide, because that could be a pressure, especially if you start something new. You don't really know if it's going to be successful, but them bills going to be there every month. every month you got that bill you got to pay. Rent, lights, gas, food, all that stuff got to be accounted for, right? But a few weeks later, after he says this to Cheryl, they're at a family dinner over his brother's house, and an argument breaks out over finances. Cheryl gets frustrated, loses her temper, and in front of his brother and his sister-in-law, she rolls her eyes at Marcus and says, well, maybe if you weren't so scared and actually knew what you were doing with this new business, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Oh, wow. She took that private, sacred vulnerability conversation that he had with her and that he had shared with her in confidence and weaponized it in public just to win an argument. The table went quiet. Marcus completely shut down. The easy, I guess, common reaction is a quick apology, So on the ride home, Cheryl senses the tension in the car, You can feel it, right? So she looks at him and says, I'm sorry I brought up that business up. I was just mad, and I know I didn't mean it. Don't be so sensitive. This doesn't fix the damage that was done to Marcus. Marcus hears the sorry, but what is the spirit registers in him? This is her sorry ain't really registering nothing, but the spirit of it is telling him that his wife is not a safe space. He decides right then that he will never share his fears with her again. The marriage doesn't end that night, but the intimacy does, because he's not going to share anything personal with her anymore because she took what he shared with her personally and brought it out in front of other people publicly just to humiliate him to win an argument. So after this, they almost just like roommates now. Here's what true restorative atonement looks like. When Cheryl realized she had compromised Marcus, this is what she should have done instead of just saying, I'm sorry and don't be so sensitive. Cheryl doesn't wait for Marcus to bring it up. She realized she broke the cardinal rule of partnership protection. She sits him down, turns off the TV, and looks him in the eye without any buts or justification. She says, I betrayed your trust tonight. You shared your deepest fears with me in private, and I used them as a weapon to embarrass you in public. That was completely out of line. I broke our safe space, and I take full responsibility for that. Atonement, you see, requires fixing the specific damage that was done. Saying my bad or I'm sorry doesn't specify what you're sorry about. Or is your bad, well, your bad about what? You see, you got to specify so that the individual knows exactly when you say my bad, what you saying my bad about. And when you say I'm sorry, they specifically know what you are claiming to be sorry about. You could be sorry about the fact that it rained. If you don't be specific, then at a later date you can come back and say, well, no, that wasn't what I was saying I was sorry about. I meant I was sorry that the fact that it rained and we just washed your car and I was messed up because it rained. That's what I meant. See, so you have to be specific. Fixing the specific damage that was done. But since Cheryl disrespected Marcus in front of the family, she has to clean it up in front of the family. She doesn't make a big dramatic scene, but the next day she calls her brother and sister-in-law and says, hey, I was completely out of pocket last night. I spoke out of anger, and I want to be clear that I fully believe in Marcus and his business. She repairs his reputation in the spaces where she damaged it. See, that's very important. You know, if you hurt somebody, you can't. The atonement or the reparations part of it is that you don't just tell the person that you were sorry, but you also have to go back in front of all the people that you made your mistake in front of and correct that in front of all those people. It was just the brother and the sister-in-law, but that's part of atonement. And see, this is something that we as Black people have to include into our understanding when we. But then there has to be some accountability. You have to take accountability for the mistakes that we make and not just brush it off to like she was at first saying, "Oh, you just being too sensitive. You need to stop being so sensitive." We can't wash over it or sugarcoat it, our actions, our bad actions, with statements like that. We have to be accountable, right? So this is, excuse me, this is where the true at-one-ment happens. Cheryl knows trust isn't rebuilt in one day, right? So she changes the way she fights now, which is another good point for Cheryl, because if she understands that using private information to win a fight is bad for the relationship, it's not saying that she shouldn't disagree or argument, or the couple shouldn't have arguments or as they say, fights or whatever. But the next time they disagree, she stays strictly on the topic at hand. She don't bring up something else to like hit below the belt to get him to shut up, because she might have been losing that particular argument. She proves over the next 6 months that she will never hit below the belt again. She also actively starts asking him about his business with genuine support, creating a new environment of encouragement. She creates, she shows that she's concerned about his business now. She gives him little pointers, ideas, and what she's thinking and saying, that was a great idea you did that you thought of to improve the business, such. You keep going, man. I'm really proud of you. These are encouragements showing that she cares now about the business, and she won't be using anything he says about his business publicly to hurt him. She's learned her lesson, right? Because Cheryl dropped her ego and did the deep work of atonement, she didn't just save an argument, she saved the foundation of their marriage. Marcus slowly sees her consistency, right? Realizing the tuning of her instrument, her personality, her ego, the tuning of it has been fixed, and learned that it is safe to open up with his wife again. Atonement restored the harmony, y'all. Why do we need atonement? For our own peace of mind. When we do wrong and don't make it right, we carry that crap around with us. That unatoned guilt turns into stress, defensive behavior, and a heavy spirit. So atonement is how we empty the rocks out of our backpack in our long-term relationships. We can't keep carrying that stuff around. Sometimes you carry it from relationship to relationship. You can't survive on apologies alone. It just ain't gonna work, y'all. So let me see how much. Oh man, it's time for us to get out of here. I'm sorry, this kind of ran a little long, but I understand that this thing called atonement is very important. Is very vital to survive these relationships. We are not going to be able to survive without atoning or understanding the process of atonement. So as we wrap up today's 15 minutes, I want to leave you with this challenge. Take a look at your life right now. And is there any relationship or situation or a promise where you gave an apology, but you never actually did the work of atonement? Don't run for the heavy lifting, y'all. The peace, the clarity, and the connection you are looking for are waiting for you on the other side of making things right. Stop playing out of key. We got to stop playing out of key. Tune up and let's get back into harmony. Head over to our social media page, y'all. And I want to hear from you guys. That's our QR code that's going to take you right to our page. I want to hear from you guys. You know, what is the hardest part about moving past an apology and stepping into real atonement? I'm your host, Omari Jahi, and we'll be white black tomorrow on another episode of The Daily Mix. Until then, I'm out. Peace.
Take care of your mind, take care of your health, and we'll be back in the mix tomorrow at 12 noon. Till then, peace out.